Hello, hello, welcome one and all, wherever you may be. It is I, Reynard C. Fox, and without further ado, let's get on with this week's Less Than Covered Stories. This will be slightly shorter than last week's newscast, as I've been kept busier with my rehabilitation and hospital discharge planning, which should be coming up very soon. That aside, let's begin with this week's first story. From CBSNews.com, Idaho must pay for transgender inmate surgery, court rules. I am such a sadomasochist. I'm really making this fun for myself this week. Let's get into it. A federal appeals court has ruled that the state of Idaho must pay for a transgender inmate's sex reassignment surgery. The state says it will appeal this case to the U.S. Supreme Court. So, to start off with on the story, this is a state prison being mandated to perform this surgery, not a privatized prison. I wonder if this will be attempted on a private contract prison and how that's going to go down. Inmate Adri Edmo has been living as a woman for years, but has been housed in a men's prison, meaning she has probably been cross-dressing as she has not attempted the surgery or the hormone treatment, and dressing as a woman. Well, it necessarily isn't the most common, but I'm sure it's not entirely uncommon. I mean, it's either that or it's dropping the soap, right? Anyways, CBS Idaho affiliate KBOI-TV reports Deborah Ferguson, an attorney representing Edmo, said in January that her client was at risk of self-harm if the surgery was postponed. I'd also like to add, client was at risk of self-harm if surgery was postponed. Really. So Adria is blackballing the state and the big house with warnings of self-harm. So I guess that's all you need now in prison. I'm going to kill myself if I don't get what I want. I'm pretty sure that's been attempted for quite some time and to no avail for most prisoners, because that's not how prison systems work. They don't exactly work great, but they're not going to work much better if inmates are going to get the upper hand by threatening suicide every time they don't get what they want. Cosmetic surgery, hormone treatment, whatever, what have you. Edmo, 31, was diagnosed with gender dysmorphia in 2012. Ferguson argued that the state's refusal to provide the surgery was unconstitutional. So why is it unconstitutional? And will this not set a nationwide precedent for prisons and institutions across the U.S. where anyone, male or female, could potentially be diagnosed with gender dysmorphia, given a sex change, and put in a prison with the gender they identify with? And I'm assuming that's what Edmo is going for. I'm assuming that she is, and we will use she out of respect. I can't read her mind. She may very well want to be a she, and may very well have been living as a woman for years. But I'm assuming the end game or the end goal here is to get into a women's prison. And I ask why. Okay, just as much as I ask why is this unconstitutional to deny that. We'll get further into the story as the reasoning as to why it's unconstitutional, which I'm going to attempt to shoot down like we're playing a game of Duck Hunt with a Nintendo in 1991. They certainly would treat a prisoner with cancer. They treat a prisoner with diabetes or other chronic conditions, Ferguson said, according to KBOI-TV. So we have a medically recognized condition that's very treatable, and we have been trying to get her the treatment that she very much needs. Yes. Okay, yes. But cancer and diabetes is life-threatening. Is very life-threatening. So is threats of suicide and attempts at suicide, but there are other ways to combat that, like solitary self-confinement, Thorazine, medications, suicide watch, traditional methods, because a person's threatening herself with self-harm or, going on a hunger strike, they would tube you. These are the methods that are traditionally used, not giving in to the prisoner's wants, desires, or mandates they are trying to set for the state prison, the ones who are supposed to be setting the mandates. It can only be argued the same only if suicide self-harm is taken as such, and in this case a threat. Has anyone asked if this has an ulterior motive to be put in a female prison or such, like I was mentioning earlier? I mean, what is the end game here? Is it real? I mean, has she gone through all the hoops? Like, I did date a trans person some years ago. I am I'm pansexual, I guess. I guess I was calling myself pansexual before all the millennials and the hipsters knew what it meant and were using it as such a trendy term. But yes, I did have a trans girlfriend who went through all the right channels, psychiatric evaluations, doctor's appointments, so on and so forth. Has Edmo gone through all these hoops and channels yet? I don't think so, given that she's threatening with suicide. I think if she had gone through the right channels, perhaps this story would be put forth in maybe a different light or at a different angle, other than she's just threatening with suicide. I don't believe that Miss Edmo has actually gone through the right channels here, because if she had, there'd be no reason to be threatening with suicide. And wait, just wait, it's going to get better here very, very soon, just wait. Earlier this year, the state of Idaho was put on a court-ordered deadline to pay for the surgery by mid-June. The state, however, appealed the decision, a process it says has already cost more than $325,000. $325,000. Goddamn, near a third of the cost to execute someone. Off topic, I know, but I asked the state pays, where does this money come from? I'll give you 3 guesses. Where does this money come from, guys? Tax dollars, winnings from the show Jeopardy, or tax dollars? I'll give you till the end of this article to answer that. You'll win no prizes, sorry, but other than the satisfaction that you have some common sense and intelligence. On Friday, the Court of Appeals agreed with the federal judge that denying the surgery amounted to cruel and unusual punishment, a violation of the U.S. Constitution. Idaho Governor Brad Little, however, said he intends to appeal the decision to the U.S. Supreme Court. The court's decision is extremely disappointing, Little said in a statement obtained by KBOI-TV. The hardworking taxpayers of Idaho, looks like you got the answer, guys, before the end of the article, should not be forced to pay for a convicted sex offender's gender reassignment surgery when it is contrary to the medical opinions of the treating physician and multiple mental health professionals. So fuck me not, guys. This will have set a precedent. I'm sorry, a loophole that will be, I promise, taken advantage of across every state with no end in sight. Every state in the country, guys. This is a precedent that if Mr. Little, Governor Little, does not win an appeal in the U.S. Supreme Court, which I guarantee, which is also going to be a landmark Supreme Court case later on this year, just you wait. This will set a precedent that every sicko and I don't mean trans person being sicko. I mean every sicko who wishes to take advantage of this reassignment any which way they can, whether they are actually trans or not, but more likely being not. This precedent will create a loophole that every creep out there wishing to take advantage of it will take advantage of it, not actual trans people who need the surgery, who wish to go through the right channels. Maybe some, but I highly doubt it. And finally, at the end of this article, Edmo, a convicted sex offender who is expected to be released from prison in 2021, is not the only inmate in the state requesting surgery. 5 other requests have been submitted since the beginning of 2019, according to the Idaho Department of Corrections. Saving the best for last, leaving out a minute little detail, actually a major fucking detail, a convicted sex offender at that. When he says state monies, he means your tax dollars, people of Idaho. Like, going back to the other paragraph, when he says state monies, he means your tax dollars, people of Idaho, and extension to people of Oregon, people of Washington, California. Oh, well, California, they probably don't give a fuck. But every state out there, that's where your money will be coming from. As for private prisons, if this case extends to them, if this president extends to privatized contract prisons, that remains to be seen. I don't know enough about that. Maybe someone would care to mention in the comments or message me or get a conversation going on this, because this is a very interesting case, albeit a very, very irritating and annoying one that I can't believe we're actually going to be arguing over in the U.S. Supreme Court. But it is a very, very interesting one at that. And now on to the other half of our newscast for the week. Texas students react to doxing threats against conservatives on campus. Which students, I'd like to know. I'm sure the conservative ones know this. I doubt they're the ones doing it, given it seems to be they are the ones it's being done against. Maybe it's the liberal ones, or maybe it's the fence sitters, or just the ones that have been doxxed who stepped out of line and strayed away from the pack of vultures, doing it to whomever, who then turned on them. Conservatives faced doxing threats on a Texas college campus in June, and it prompted campus reforms Cabot Phillips to ask students there about the issue. Doxing is absolutely a growing trend, and it was encouraging to see most students come out and admit that doxing is wrong regardless of the purpose, Phillips told Fox and Friends. Sadly, it is becoming more and more common. And yes, it is a growing trend, and it's been growing more and more common for quite a while. This is nothing new. I think the story should have been done well over a year ago, and I'm sure it has. And we've already seen ultimate consequences result from this, not just death threats, but people taking this to a whole new level with the trend of swatting, where we're not just throwing up people's personal information, we're calling SWAT teams, giving out a person's personal location, but then making up lies that they are doing something heinous that requires a SWAT team to come in and, i.e., SWAT them. But doxing in and of itself is more of a tool for political malignment. An Austin, Texas student group threatened incoming freshmen at the University of Texas that it would post their public information if they joined a conservative club on campus. Doxing is a slang term referring to the disclosure online of someone's personal information. The Autonomous Student Network, which was previously suspended from Twitter for doxing supporters of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh during the nomination process, threatened similar action against freshmen who joined groups like Young Conservatives of Texas or Turning Point USA. Hey, hashtag UT23, do you want to be famous? The self-described anti-fascist account tweeted, if you join YCT or Turning Point USA, you might just be. Your name and more could end up on an article, so be sure to make smart choices at hashtag UTorientation. So as you can see, now we are seeing preemptive doxing, threats to actually make good on by threatening on Twitter beforehand. Perhaps this is being done so groups like the doxers do not have to actually risk punishment and maybe just scare people into thinking that they're going to be doxed. That would be my hope. And it also puts light on them before they actually commit these types of acts on freshman students, no less. Like kids who are coming in and hoping to have a good first term, first year. I mean, it's almost like that scene from Dazed and Confused where, freshman hunt, where these kids are running around scared of the woods, so they're going to get paddled on the butt just because they're new. Except in this case, it's not because they're new, it's because that they have their own personal opinions. And groups like the Autonomous Student Network wish to actually change that by either silencing them or forcing them to develop new opinions and bring them over to their side. I would hope that this is a huge mistake on this group's part, and I honestly believe that this could actually be good by them making these threats on Twitter. Colleges can actually take action, the dean, the administration, and students can take action against them before they actually make good on these threats. The previous articles featured photos of conservative student leaders along with personal information about them, including phone numbers and email addresses, labeling them as dangerous and accusing them of harassing professors, infiltrating student groups, and rigging student elections. Phillips went to the campus during his freshman orientation to get the students' reactions to the threat. A student told Phillips, I'm not conservative, I'm actually quite liberal, but I don't think that's cool. Another student said, I mean, this is a great school. You should be able to express your views as a whole, whether you're conservative or super liberal. And with that being said, I think I will show a clip or the whole video that was with this news article where the Fox correspondent is actually interviewing students and getting these answers from them as we were seeing in the editorial. And I think this is a very good, this is actually a very, very good questionnaire that they're doing on campus. I'd like to do something like this myself on Portland State University at some point, although I'm pretty sure I'm not exactly going to get the same optimistic, positive responses that this gentleman is getting here. But let's watch him interview some of these students.
Campus Reform went to Texas for UT Austin's freshman orientation to get students' reaction to the threat.
Not cool with doxing. Seems like a low blow to just call somebody out for what their opinion is.
I mean, this is a great school. You should be able to express your views as a whole, whether you're conservative or super liberal.
I'm not conservative. I'm actually quite liberal, but I don't think that's cool.
And I don't think people will actually dox you online. I don't think they will. I think it's a threat.
Threats are bad, though, right?
I mean, yeah, but I don't think they'll actually do it.
Well, you just saw Cabot Phillips in that video, and he is the media director for campusreform.org, and he joins us now. Good morning to you, Cabot.
Thanks for having me on.
That young lady said she didn't think they would actually do it, but you and I know good and well that it can happen, and it has happened a lot.
Yeah, and it's absolutely a growing trend, and it was encouraging to see most students come out and admit doxing is wrong, regardless of the purpose. And sadly, it is becoming more and more common. It's not just something that's on the fringes of the party. We've got Democratic members of Congress using doxing to intimidate supporters of President Trump, as we reported at Leadership Institute's Campus Forum. Other professors around the country coming out doxing students for their support of Border Patrol, ICE, other conservative causes like that. And I think that it's important that whenever this does arise, especially in an age of so little ideological diversity on campus, we need to make sure that universities are letting students know, if you have an opinion that's not popular, we're still going to protect it. We're not going to let people threaten you for your ideas. And I think that's how you shut this kind of mentality down before it becomes even more common. We need to come together as a country and as universities and make sure we shut this down. The University of Texas, to their part, has reached out to the Attorney General's office there in the state to make sure they're providing full legal support to any students that are being threatened with having their information released.
That's good news. Here is what the school had to say about it. Students should never be targeted or face harassment for their affiliations, political beliefs, or for any other reason. We also reached out to the Texas Attorney General's office to see if they could identify other legal options. They agreed that we are taking all available steps under the current circumstances. Do you know who's responsible?
So finally, at the end of this newscast, I have one bit of information news that has already been put out there a million times over. So I'm just going to make a slight mention of it for this week, the end of this week's newscast. One of the Koch brothers, David Koch, conservative activist, in quotation marks, and philanthropist, double quotation marks, died this week. And rather than cover an obituary or an article on his passing, I wanted to end this video with a moment of silence.
Well, he ain't getting any deader.
And that Disney clip might get me a copyright strike, but copyright strike or none, folks. In the words of Tupac Shakur, break out the champagne and the motherfucking condoms. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, nunquam desiste, da nunquam continuo unam duas veoncias. Never give an inch, folks, and never give up. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.